Let's hear you, Dylan. Say something.
Test, test, test. Can you hear me?
It is so quiet still.
Okay.
Um, yeah, maybe I'll try the headphones. Even though I'll look like a podcast dork, that's all right.
Perfect.
We will
Can the
try.
chat hear me? Can the chat hear me okay?
Let's see.
Okay.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
And it's still playing through my phone, and not even this. You know, I could have sworn you were the one in the military, not me. Uh,
That's true.
I'm,
That's
I'm
true.
supposed to have actually good equipment, so I don't know what's going on here. But I'll just scoot in and try to listen the best I can. Hey everybody, I'm David Clayton. Clayton, the number 4NC.com. I'm running for office in North Carolina's District 5. With me, I have Captain Blaha, Dylan Blaha for Congress, or pardon me, it's Dylan for Illinois.com.
Mhm.
And what district are you running in Illinois?
I'm running in Illinois' 13th district. So it's central Illinois from Champaign-Urbana all the way to East St. Louis. Some would call it gerrymandered. So, but it's definitely an interesting
And
shape.
that's actually the issue I'm running into in my district. And I've
Hmm.
got a lot of pushback from
Hmm.
Democrats. I am a lifelong Dem myself. Um, I hold dear Democrat progressive principles, but I'm also a realist, and I understand that because of places that are gerrymandered, there simply is not enough registered Republicans,
Hmm.
or pardon me, registered Democrats in order to win a Dem ticket. So I've been saying from the start of my campaign that the Democrat Party really needs to try different strategies. But my focus is running as an independent is not just trying to fire a MAGA Republican
Hmm.
that has done nothing in her 20 plus year tenure, but to actually have a representative for the people that actually works on policy for the people over any given party. Uh, so I am a lifelong Dem, and I do support a great deal many of Dem policies, but it's a losing ticket here. The Dem candidate Chuck Hubbard, who's running again in my district as a
Hmm.
Democrat, I voted for him in 2024, but I knew he was going to lose, and he did. He lost by 78,000 votes, almost 78,000 votes, 20
Oh
plus
my gosh.
points, and you can't make up that kind of deficit. But unfortunately, he is running again. A lot of people have told me, you know, you're just going to split the vote. And I'm trying to say, what vote to split when there's not enough votes to vote? So that is my goal: is to try to, form a coalition with like-minded, actual representatives of people like yourself. You're running as a
Mhm.
Democrat, right?
I am, although I am running against a incumbent Democrat
Okay.
because of my beliefs about what the Democratic Party should be versus what they are right now. But
Right.
like you said, I'm also a lifelong Democrat, but I've become disillusioned with the moneyed interests that I think hold them back. But I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more
Yeah, I
later.
mean that's a core issue of my campaign is
Hmm.
to call out the corruption that is now legalized within our political system.
Yeah.
It used to become synonymous that there was no such thing, or synonymous with corruption. The word politician. There's no such thing as an honest politician, and people just kind of got used to that. But politicians, even back then, would go out of their way to hide
Hmm.
illegal corruption. But because of things like Citizens United, they don't even have to hide it anymore. It's all legalized. They can take any kind of buy off or payout that they want now, and there's no one saying that like, hey, you shouldn't be doing that.
Hmm.
So there's definitely a huge issue with our current representation of corruption, and I aim to call it all out. I hope you do too, even as a Democrat.
Hmm.
I've said that I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, who you pledge fealty to, what party. If I get to DC and I find that you're on the take, I'm going to call you out
Yep.
because you're not doing your job. All you're doing is supporting yourself and your donors. You're not actually the definition of the word representative. And I think that's what our country needs more of. And we need to see
Hmm.
more real everyday Americans like yourself, a captain in the Illinois National Guard, myself, an everyday American working to survive paycheck by paycheck instead
Hmm.
of these these billionaires. I want to see Americans like you in office that understand and relate to everyday Americans of what actual hardships are and what actual blessings are.
No,
A
that's
hardship
one.
for you is completely different than a
Mhm.
hardship for the rich. A blessing for you is completely different than a blessing for the rich. And
Yeah.
I think the American public is kind of desperate for that.
Yeah, I think one thing I hear often is how will you be different? And ultimately it is that grassroots style. I say all the time, people ask the same thing in the military. They say, "Hey, how will you be different once you get promoted?" Always the answer of, "I will remember where I came from." I was an enlisted private combat medic back in the day, and I never forget that. And it's the same way in Congress in Washington that you cannot forget where you came from, and whether it's age, moneyed interest. I think it's a collection of all of it, but I don't feel like these representatives represent me. And I'm sure most of the people in this chat would agree with that.
Yeah, and before we get too far, I just want to say thank you very much for your service, especially as a combat medic, a doc, right? Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
thanks for your
the
support.
I have a great friend who makes content online named Troy. He was a green doc for the Navy, and man, the combat medics are just amazing. Um, both healers and warriors. So yeah, all the respect in the world to you and your service. I greatly appreciate it. And a lot of people don't even realize that a lot of National Guard like yourself don't just they're not weekend warriors as the stereotype says. They don't just show up and do
Hmm.
drills and training exercises in their state. They deploy overseas. You went to
Hmm.
Afghanistan, right?
Yep. Yeah, I went to Afghanistan and then I spent 3 years on active duty as a war planner for U.S. Army Europe. I was there post Russian invasion of Ukraine, so we were working alongside NATO to try and develop realistic war plans because what was there wasn't really, ready for prime time, as they say.
Well, I'm sure the general public is kind of feeling the same iffy and active
Hmm.
duty too about what's really happening and what's there right now. I
Yeah.
know DODI prevents you from saying certain things, even as a congressional candidate, but
Hmm.
I do appreciate your honesty and your
Hmm.
candor. I know personally a lot of, I can say, because I'm not a veteran, I'm not military, I come from a long lineage of family that served, and that has always guided me and inspired me to go out and like I did driving the country helping homeless vets
Hmm.
for 2 years because I felt
Wow.
guilty. I'm just a city. Um, the veterans across our nation have already earned this life. I'm trying to earn this life by paying it forward. But I will say because of my advocacy, I do have a large support structure,
Hmm.
a large following base of both active duty and veterans. Um, and the active duty ones, man, they send me messages all the time saying, whatever the hell is happening right now, is your guess is as good as ours because everything is a mess. Everything is the most disorganized and no actual structural plans. We
Yeah.
got this SecWa because it's no longer SecDef, right? SecWa um,
Yep.
in charge that just wants his photo op and to do his dolphin pull ups,
Hmm.
looking like Marjorie Taylor Greene instead of an actual Secretary of Defense. So believe me, for all the active duty out there, I empathize and I feel your fears and your worries about the state of everything and the control
Hmm.
structure and the leadership structure that's happening right now. But
Hmm.
I still commend every single one of you that wake up in the morning and show up to work and do your job. The mission and your oath, I think, is more important than any kind of power structure politically, and it always will be. Speaking on that, one of the things you went
Hmm.
kind of super viral for being an active duty National Guardsman and speaking about these ICE raids.
Hmm.
And, we formerly, you and I spoke privately, and I said, what the hell is going on with the traditional Republican conservative base? Because every
Yep.
Republican I've ever known my entire life has been calling for an abolishment of ICE and not a big government, not a police state. And now you got these MAGA people today that are like, saying, hey, look at that ATF guy arresting that brown
Yep.
person. Yeah, I love seeing ATF on my streets. It makes no sense to me. So, can you speak a little bit more, especially about this deployment? And I know Trump's deploying from other states to
Yeah.
specific states because he is himself fearful that if he were to deploy like the Illinois National Guard, that they would say, no, I'm not doing that.
Yep.
I'm not doing that. I'm going to follow my commander in chief, which your commander in chief would be Governor Pritzker, right?
Yep. Exactly. Um,
So, yeah, can you
mhm,
speak more about the conversations that you're being told by your following base
mhm.
from your viral video about saying, hey, remember your oath, remember your rights if you're an active duty service member?
Yeah. So I received a lot of feedback from folks, and they're all scared too. And so many people said thank you for speaking out right now, because like you said, on active duty it is a little bit more strict, right? They fall under UCMJ. It's harder to speak out. There's a little bit more strict of a social media policy. Whereas myself, as a National Guard soldier, I need to make sure I say, hey, these views are my own. They don't represent the Illinois National Guard, but I'm speaking as a candidate. And then it does make it a little bit easier. But I think it's important for people to know that everything that's going on in DC, while it was legal, was meant to shift the Overton window. And so things that were once seemed unacceptable now seem acceptable or even reasonable. And so, yeah, like you said, the Texas National Guard is at Great Lakes Base in Chicago because he knows that if he asked Pritzker to deploy the Illinois National Guard, Pritzker would say no. And then we'd have another LA situation. But at the end of the day, because of the Posse Comitatus Act, any federalized National Guard soldier cannot assist law enforcement. They can guard federal buildings, they can help with security by standing next to them, although that puts them more at risk. But things like that they can do. There is a little bit of a gray area if they're on what's called Title 32, because every state has different laws, and that's where it's hard. To where my advice to a lot of people that reach out to me is, I said it is better if you follow every legal order, and then you're there to say no if you're ever issued an illegal order.
Right.
That being said, it's tough. I mean, there's plenty of missions that if I was asked to go, I would likely say no. Even just because it's something that you have to draw a line somewhere. But that's tough.
And I just saw, tragically, I saw a breaking news story. I don't have the details of it, but I did hear of um, somebody um, that lost their life during an ICE apprehension at the hands of
In
ICE.
Chicago.
I don't know who the victim was. I don't know if they were undocumented migrant. I don't know if they're American. But there has been a fatality
Mhm.
due to ICE's apprehension, and I think what the nation is seeing um, is that a lot of these federal agents today are they're green, they're fresh out of the gate, they're new hires, they don't have former training.
Yeah,
There's a lot of allegations of, are they oath keepers, are they Patriot Front, are they January
Proud Boys.
Sixers? Because we're all seeing the typical markers that a lot of
Hmm.
them sport, and you can see in some ICE activities that have been recorded. I have seen some ICE people that have been reserved in carrying out their objective. Um, I would even go as far as say professional in carrying out their
Hmm.
objective. Then I've seen guys that are completely unstable and off the cuff and have no idea of any kind of. I mean, I'm a civvy, and even I know T's and P's,
Hmm.
um, tactics and procedures. They're just they're 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 not even proper door kickers. So I am seeing, and people are afraid of that. Seeing like, who are these people that are now federalized?
Hmm.
Basically just rounding up anyone that they deem to
Hmm.
be, illegal. And these guys, now that we're seeing the loss of life, you know, yeah, my dog is jumping. We're seeing. I have said for a long time, and I've been worried about this as a content creator. I've always kind of tried to push, any governor that regardless of how they are, Democrat or Republican, that actually does believe in less big government. That hey,
Mhm.
you need to form some kind of civil liberties protection force, CLP,
Yeah.
for the military community out there. Uh, a CLP force of state agencies, first responders, things like that, to set up human blockades and prevent the ICE and ATF and FBI from carrying out what they're doing. I'm not saying start a civil war. I'm saying like, hey, confront these people in these unmarked vehicles
Mhm.
and say, show me your judicial warrant to apprehend the named individual that your head, Christy Nome, says that you've got investigations open on all these people, all these suspects. So show me the named individual and a
Mhm.
judicial warrant, and you can proceed to go and apprehend that person.
No, you're right, because
Because
most
you
most people don't.
obviously have
Yeah.
gone through the process. This person is a suspect, a person of interest in a personal crime or something, instead of just, the trust me, bro, that we're seeing out there with, oh, I'm a federal agent, trust me, bro. No, there are
Mhm.
procedures, there is due process, there is the Constitution, which all of your brothers and sisters swore an oath to. Um, I am a constitutionalist at heart, and what we're seeing today across our country is big government. And it is a police
Mhm.
state. And it is
Yeah.
unconstitutional. And not just that, nothing about any of these MAGA policies are conservative either. None of them are fiscally conservative. Our farmers are going bankrupt. People are losing their Medicaid. The cost on the taxpayer is going up every single day. Donald Trump wants to
Mhm.
spend $200 billion on a ballroom, not to mention all the millions of dollars that we, the taxpayers, spend on every single one of the stupid sporting events he feels compelled to attend.
No,
There
exactly.
is nothing fiscally conservative, and in how these policies are being carried out and the persecutions of others, I go as far as saying there's nothing Christ-like in the MAGA policy agenda. Um, and that's something I really try to put across to my more centrist and even
Mhm.
right-leaning followers, that I've always said, hey, if you're a Republican, not MAGA, but a Republican, we can sit at the same table and we
Mhm.
can still disagree about things, but we can still have mutual respect for each other as Americans. But this MAGA, big government is okay, ATF on the streets, go ahead and let Trump spend a blank check on whatever he wants, and target people and divide our nation, persecute groups of people, black and brown people, LGBTQIA people, anybody. It's just American trying to live their damn life, and then claim that you're a Christian is absolutely absurd. So Republicans, traditional Republicans, are welcome at my dinner table, and we can disagree on things. But I will still have mutual respect for you as American. But anyone that is falling into this pledging allegiance to one man over the Constitution, our fellow countrymen and women, that's not my kind of people. Never will be.
No, you're right. I think on its surface, the idea that federal agents are wearing masks and taking people with, like you said, not judicial warrants, but with just warrants that they wrote in their car, that's
Right.
not okay. It's the same thing with for-profit prisons, for-profit healthcare. We all know, even on its surface, it sounds wrong. And
Right.
yeah,
So let's
so like you
let's let's
said,
talk about
yeah,
healthcare there.
mhm,
I Do you agree that our country needs universal healthcare?
yep, I do,
Okay.
100%.
Okay, I absolutely agree. Some of my more lefter leaning people
Mhm.
are probably not going to like what I have to say. I absolutely support universal health care for all, but I'm a realist. I know it's going to take a long time to get there. Um, and the only way we're going to ever be able to get there is by rooting out the for-profit corruption system within our government. And that
Yeah.
goes for anything with our government. Universal health care, um, uh, firearm safety and reform. I'm a 2A owner. I'm trained and proficient And I have said many times before that truly responsible firearm owners support reform across the board. The only
Hmm.
people that don't want any kind of safety checks are the people who, let's be honest, wouldn't pass any kind of search or checks. Um, so I've got no problem with people owning, but I want people to be responsible who own. And just like going back to healthcare, because I kind of went off on a little tangent there, I want universal healthcare for everybody.
Hmm.
But I understand how deeply woven our for-profit, corrupted political system is that's preventing that for so long. So we got to root out the corruption,
Hmm.
and then do things while we in the in between before we get to universal health care for all. We got to set up long-term solutions to protect things like Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security, and not just protect them but expand upon them. I don't know if you know this, Dylan, but I was my mother's caretaker until her last moments on this earth,
Oh, wow.
and I spent countless hours on Medicaid, arguing about what she would be approved for, either this month's life-saving prescriptions or this month's in-home assisted care because she was
Mm.
bedridden. And she worked her entire life, paid into the system her entire life. I've worked
Mm.
my entire life, paid into the system my entire life. We shouldn't be on the phone debating, trying to split the difference of a basic living
Yep.
for our seniors, our children, our disabled, all everyday Americans. Uh, we are, Donald Trump keeps on saying that we're the hottest, richest nation in the world and that we're bringing in, $148 trillion a month, whatever the hell lie he's coming up with this month.
Hmm.
But if we are supposedly the richest nation in the world, then why are we having to make cuts to things like Medicaid, Medicare? Why do they want to go after Social Security? Because they don't want to cop to them stealing from it for decades upon decades, that Social Security actually is solvent. Social Security actually does fund itself and can
Hmm.
take care of every American as long as they keep their greedy little hands out of the pot.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, healthcare in itself is, in my belief, I agree with Bernie that it's a human right. And it's the same thing with housing, right? If you're a contributing member of society, if you work hard, you deserve to have a good life. You shouldn't have to struggle. Most people in my district that are below the poverty line, that are unhoused, they still have jobs, and the jobs just aren't enough. I've spoken with people that are working two, three jobs. None of them they can get more than 15, 20 hours a week. And the system is broken for most people. I mean, look at people that are probably between 55 and 60. They're still, if they get laid off, it's hard for them to ever find a job again. And students that are coming out of college right now, they're going back home to live with their parents. So there's so many. I've worked with a couple of nonprofits in my district that say a lot of people are living in multi-generational homes for the first time ever, just because that's the only way that they can afford to live.
Right. No, it's you're absolutely right. We do need solutions that. I mean, again, it's I can't. I'm sounding repetitive here, but it really ties back to the corruption.
Hmm.
Um, in being able to come up with long-term solutions, we have to call out the corruption. There are major hedge funds and things like BlackRock and things like that that are buying up properties left and right, and turning them all into rentals, and forcing this desperate need of and what we're seeing come out of that, a lack of affordable housing.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, it's like these billionaires, man, they're poking the bear. We're getting real
Hmm.
close here. They keep on poking and poking and poking and thinking that nothing's going to happen. But I tell you what, I've got my own estate picked out on a couple islands and a couple states I can think of top of my head. I hope it never comes to that, but
Hmm.
I know a whole bunch of Americans and a whole lot of estates that could house thousands upon thousands of Americans. So
Hmm.
y'all billionaires, keep on pushing, keep on
Yeah.
pushing. See what happens. I'll do this by the Constitution and by our
Hmm.
legal system and our legislation, um, as long as you afford me to. But you keep on pushing the American public. It's American public's going to come up with its own solutions.
No, and it's tough, right? Look at Elon Musk spent over $270 million to elect Donald Trump. But then if you peel that back, if you look at any Democrat, establishment Democrat that's not a grassroots politician,
Right.
so mine, for example, in our district, 2.7% of her donations come from small donors. Everything else is from corporations, super PACs, large donors. And I've seen some where every single member of the family gave the max donation, and there's nothing weird about that, I'm sure. But and then you wonder why we don't have Medicare for all, or even that they won't say that that's the goal of, hey, we want to get Medicare for all in 10 years. Let's start down that path. They
Yeah.
they can't even say that out loud because then the corporations get mad.
Right. The insurance companies and the
Hmm.
major, and then you've got the major healthcare providers like Kaiser Permanente,
Hmm.
that are. It's why do we not have something on the books that says that you cannot both simultaneously be a provider and an
Hmm.
insurance company all in one?
Yep.
I mean, that's a direct conflict of interest right there. And Kaiser by far isn't the only one operating like that. But yeah, it's on both sides of the aisle. That's the sad fact. Democrats,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to tell you this, but just because you're a Democrat and you hate Donald Trump does not mean that there aren't Democrats that are screwing up the system too.
Yep.
Um,
Exactly.
and vice versa. Republicans, look at Democrat top of the head, $200 million net worth, Nancy Pelosi.
Hmm.
Republican top of the head, Rick Scott, aka Voldemort from Harry Potter, $500 million. You
Wow.
can't tell me that we gotta stop this tribalism of the
Hmm.
MAGA or nothing or blue no matter who, and we got to get back to policy and people over party. Otherwise, we're
Hmm.
going to keep down the same vicious cycle. And one of the goals of my campaign is to put forth legislation. First, I got to call out all the corruption.
Hmm.
I'm going to be going in with some level 4 body wear, but I'm going to call out all the corruption in 4K.
Yeah.
Um, but I want to put in pieces of legislation that put stopgaps in place. Like top of my head on my issues page, one of the things I want to do is, and I still haven't renamed it yet. I need to because it's way too long of a name, but it's called the Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security Protections Act. I'm
Hmm.
going to rename it back to the Budget Accountability Bill.
Hmm.
And what this would have done was it would have stopped, if it was in place, it would have stopped the one big beautiful bill
Hmm.
in dead in its tracks. Because what my Budget Accountability Act would do is say, hey, if there's a budget reconciliation bill that you need to pass, you can propose cuts to make tax cuts for your rich friends, but what takes priority on those cuts, those government departments that you want to cut, like they just did with Medicaid,
Hmm.
are actually departments that cannot pass audits, like our
Yep.
Pentagon or like our
Hmm.
Homeland Security. And watch how fast every single one of those Republicans that wants to cut things to make tax cuts for the rich will stop dead in their tracks and say, well, no, we're not going to propose any cuts for the Pentagon. We're not going to propose any cuts for Homeland Security.
Hmm.
Um, and that's fine. Then make them pass an audit. Show the American public, since the Congress, the House is the power of the purse and controls the budget, show the American public actual transparency of where American tax dollars are going to. I don't want to see any more of this, black water, black ops, black budget kind of bullshit. There's a lot of bees. I want to see transparency
Hmm.
where
No,
things are
exactly.
actually spent. The Pentagon has never passed an audit. That doesn't mean I don't want things like the NDAA not passed to pay the troops, but in the defense budget, only about 1% of that actually goes to our troops.
Yeah, it's
So
it's a very
dig
small
into
amount.
those private contractors that are getting the majority of
Hmm.
the shit, are being paid on stuff every single year and still aren't delivering on stuff.
Hmm.
Why
Yeah, I mean,
why are our contractors, why do your brothers and sisters have to show up, put on a uniform to work every day, do your job, and you are, one, struggling to get paid, two,
hmm
having benefits, active duty and veteran benefits being cut, being slashed, 3 are not getting proper health care that you need while active duty or veterans. And 4, there's no guardrails in place to even stop these private contractors that aren't even delivering on products, equipment, goods, contracts, and are still being paid. So why do they all get the top priority? The number one reason, circling back again to that corruption, because they are paying directly to these senators and members of the House.
Yep.
To
It's just
not
like
want any cuts on them.
and Elon Musk when he said, "Oh, I don't have any conflicts of interest," right? And clearly he does with SpaceX and all of their government
Oh,
contracts.
he's got a shit ton of
Mhm.
military contracts.
Boeing often doesn't fulfill their contracts for
Right.
they say, "Oh, sorry, the jet wasn't up to snuff, but we'll take your billions of dollars."
I mean, all of them.
Hmm.
United Defense, Lockheed
Hmm.
Martin, Raytheon. I mean, we got a crap ton of foreign military industrial complex contractors.
Yeah.
BAE Systems every single month
Hmm.
going out. We're paying. My friend didn't give me a list, but he recited off a list to me. Who's at the Pentagon?
Hmm.
Um, definitely not going to drop his name, not right now. But he was telling me that there is hundreds of millions of dollars going out to contractors for research and development on
Yep.
projects that were awarded the contract 50 years ago. That
Hmm.
their original contract design is completely obsolete in today's military, but they're still being paid on research and development on shit.
Yep.
That's like we're still paying Von Braun for his V2 rocket, whatever. Now, why? I mean, what the hell? What the hell's going on? There needs that, and again, this is why, because pockets are getting padded. Why we need transparency and accountability. We need things like our Pentagon to pass an audit. We need Homeland
Hmm.
Security to pass an audit. Homeland Security wouldn't have been able to hire alleged Oath Keepers and Jan
Hmm.
Sixers and Patriot Front members and all that other crap because Kristi Noem was bankrupting Homeland Security by month 4. The only reason
Hmm.
she's able to keep going is because of the one big beautiful bill, which has now made Homeland Security on an equal footing
Yep.
almost with our United States Marine Corps individual budget. I think the Army still has the total on that, but
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a little higher.
but yeah, it's just it's ridiculous the amount of blank check writing and willful sacrificing of our liberties and
Hmm.
freedoms just for a party that
Hmm.
we're seeing with MAGA stuff today. And it's just like I try to plead with Republicans because a lot of them were split on the Epstein thing. Thankfully, a lot of them.
Yeah.
It sucks and it's sad that it took that for them to wake up
Hmm.
to it. Um, that MAGA is in fact a lie, an influence campaign to divide our nation. It's not conservative. It's not constitutional. It's not Christ-like. Um, but a lot of them have split on the Epstein thing, and thankfully are not letting that go.
Hmm.
The incumbent I'm challenging, Virginia Fox, 82-year-old Virginia Fox, I will always say that, actually just voted no on because she's the chairwoman of the House Rules Committee
Hmm.
on releasing the files or letting the release of the files get to the House floor to even be voted on. And
Wow.
then over on the Senate side, every single Republican over there also, I don't know if it was every single Republican, but the majority of Republicans over there voted no to releasing the files. So what kind of nation are we living in
Hmm.
where everything is complete antithetical and opposite of conservative values, but is under the guise of conservative values? We have a big brother. We're losing our liberties and constitutional rights. We are persecuting groups of people. Even people we can't stand are losing their life when they should be able to continue and keep on uh, exercising their First Amendment and freedom of speech. Everybody should. Sorry, everybody should be able to
Exercising his
exercise
freedom of speech.
our constitutional rights. So, yeah, I'm optimistic and angry at the same time because I believe it never should have had to get this far.
Yeah.
But I do believe people like yourself and people like myself can do the hard work to get in and not get to DC and to, you know, be bought out by lobbyists and foreign funded
Hmm.
organizations and not go to lavish dinners with our colleagues and coworkers while they, you know, flaunt fur coats and shit. I'll be eating at Taco Bell in DC, even if it's overpriced. I'll still be eating Taco Bell, even though it's horrible for me. And I'm not sponsored by Taco Bell. Just put that out there. But yeah, I think we gotta get back to the definition of the word representative. I think for too long,
Yep.
regardless of who they claim to be, Democrat or Republican, we've got people in office that are only doing it for their own generational wealth and not for the
Mhm.
actual representation of the American people.
Well, because right now, neither party really feels like it's fighting for workers. I would say that for a while, Democrats argued that they do. They're the one that usually most unions align with because they fight with workers' rights. But you can't just say that you'll fight for unions, but then still do everything that the corporations ask you to do. And I think Donald Trump tapped into a lot of that fake populism, but he was able to channel that anger, that resentment over the economy, and then say things like, "Oh, no tax on tips," even though that's not actually going to last that long anyway.
Right.
But he did that, and it resonated because people are struggling, and so that's my challenge to the Democratic Party is we need to be the party that fights for workers because otherwise, what are we doing anyway?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, an old friend of mine in Ohio for my brief stay there for a couple of years, taking care of mom before I moved her back to her home in California and took care of her. But an old friend in Ohio said something to me.
Mhm.
I'll never forget, and I say it all the time. He said, I said I was going to go do this or do that. I can't remember even what it was about, but he looked at me and he said, "Well, be about it. Don't talk about it." And I've never forgotten that, and I'm sure he wasn't the
Mhm.
first person to say it, but I've always repeated it, and I absolutely take it to heart when I'm calling out the fecklessness and the willful ineptitude of our politicians today. And I say, you know, we need representatives that actually be about it, and don't just talk about it.
Yep.
You know, you say you want to help the American public. You say you want to help bring grocery prices down. You say you want to make gas cheaper. You say you want people to be able to have health care. You say you want wages to go up and workers' rights. You say you want veterans and active duty to be taken care of and support the troops. You say you want no big government and a balanced budget and no reckless spending and no more waste, fraud, and abuse. Then be about it. Don't just talk
Mhm.
about it. And unfortunately, whether it's Donald Trump and MAGA or some of these establishment politicians on the Dem side, uh, they all seem to get awfully quiet when their own respective bases are actually calling them out and holding them accountable and say, "You said you would deliver this. You're not
Mhm.
doing it."
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
I mean, look at so I know we had talked before this. I mean, look at universal healthcare right now. There's a Pew Research study that right now 70% of Americans, both parties, bipartisan, believe that the government should be responsible for providing healthcare. And then look at an issue like Israel Palestine, even. With the Democratic Party, it's 92 to 8 right now that 92% of Democrats at least want the military aid to Israel to end. And they're still not reading the room.
right.
They're still not even just saying like, hey, regardless of whether you call it a genocide like I do, or somebody who just says, hey, it's gone too far. I think no American wants their tax dollars to go to that when we're struggling at home. When
Yeah,
we should be building schools in America, not bombing schools and hospitals in
exactly.
Gaza.
Exactly. And, you know, I mean, they say things like they want to cut waste, fraud, and abuse, and then take away our soft power in things like
Hmm.
you said that actually prevent uh, future military action because it by us because it prevents things like factions and you know terrorist cell networks and things of this and caliphates growing. Soft power and actually feeding starving kids and nations actually results in less of our military action down the
Hmm.
line, if anyone was wondering. Um,
Hmm.
they say there's waste, fraud, and abuse in it. That they won't go after military contractors. They say there's waste, fraud, abuse in Medicaid. They won't go after the Pentagon. They say we can't afford to build schools, build hospitals, fix roads. Um, and then they spend $200 billion on a stupid ballroom no one cares
Hmm.
about. Not even our allies care about. But it is
Hmm.
very reminiscent. The designs for the ballroom he wants are very reminiscent of the Kremlin's ballroom, of Putin's ballroom. That was my very first thought when I saw the sketches of
Hmm.
the ballroom Trump is spending our tax dollars with. That no one, I don't think even anyone on his side of his following base asked for it.
Hmm.
The very first thought I said to myself was, this is going to be a lavish, huge ballroom that he can take a long walk down a red carpet with military lining it,
Hmm.
paying tribute to him and Putin as they both walk all the way in to a thunderous applause of rich elites that have lost any kind of moral footing or actual patriotism, that are pleased to sell out our country and our Constitution. Um, if we are the richest, hottest nation in the world, well, why did he do things like telling when he wasn't president, calling and telling the Republican representatives to block things like the infrastructure bill,
Yep.
just because he didn't want Biden to have a political win? Have you
Hmm.
noticed what he's doing, by the way, with the infrastructure bill?
Hmm.
All the projects all across the nation, all the major projects, highways, freeways, roads,
Hmm.
uh, any kind of major construction that was paid for by Biden's infrastructure bill, he is having them all put up huge signs in front of them saying, "This project brought to you by Donald J. Trump."
Yeah,
And
and that's
every
tough
single
because.
one of his Republican representatives voted no on it. People like Nancy Mace, who's running for the governor of South Carolina, and their massive highway project that's going on down there on the, what highway is it? The 45, 40. Um, she voted no against it, and she's campaigning, bragging on the infrastructure, bringing billions into South Carolina. These these
Yeah.
people these people harm our country, and when they can't get their way in directly harming our country, they try to swoop in and take credit for it, like Lauren Boebert in Colorado,
Hmm.
uh, Marjorie Taylor Greene in Georgia. Uh, yeah, it's absolutely absurd to me, and our press is just completely just non-existent and gone at this point, and completely sold out any kind of ethical journalism, legacy media, where they interview these people and they don't even ask them when they make these audacious claims. They don't even
Hmm.
confront them and say, like, well, you voted no on that. Um,
Hmm.
it's just crazy to me to see, and unfortunately, the majority of the public won't ever go to like Congress.gov or whatever it is and look up voting records of people.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
I really wish more people would, but I also understand it's kind of by design.
Yep.
They're making it so that people have to work 3, 4 jobs just to afford rent. People are struggling to survive, and this is not where our nation should be at right now.
Hmm.
And the only way we're going to fix this mess is by having a coalition of, God, I hate the term America first, Americans first, because it was directly taken from the Yahtzee movement in the 40s,
Hmm.
in our country.
Yeah,
Um,
that's why my slogan is people first. Just
People
so
first, people and policy
yeah.
first, people
Hmm.
first, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, we need to form a coalition
Hmm.
of people on the inside, and once I get elected, I hope I can find a Republican representative that is aligned and says, like,
Hmm.
look, we will disagree on things, but I'm not going to persecute people.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna celebrate big government. I'm not gonna support big government. I'm not going to cover up for people on things like the Epstein files. And I
Hmm.
will happily work with that person as long as they're not on the take.
Yeah.
And same with progressives or Dems. I want to find people like AOC or Jasmine Crockett and hope when I can sit down with them and say like, hey, look, I know you're a Democrat and I know you're also having a tough time with things that are happening in your own party right now because, like the establishment isn't supporting, that
Mhm.
guy in New York City, Mamdani or whatever. And there's
Yeah.
the infighting going on between the corporate establishment Dems and the progressive Dems. But look, we need to form a coalition of actual representatives because
Mhm.
these people that pledge their fealty to a party over the people. That's a losing strategy, and our country loses inevitably through it. We got to get back to the definition of the word representative. We got to call out the corruption,
Mhm.
and even risk our own lives. I will say in doing so. Um, if I catch Pelosi on a hot mic saying that she took, a manila envelope with stuff full of $100 bills. Hopefully, at her age, it's $100 bills and not ones.
Mhm.
But I'm going to call her out. I'm going to make that shit
Yeah.
public. If I catch Rick Scott saying
Mhm.
that, oh yeah, I just awarded this government contract to this company that I own 50,000 shares in, I'm going to call his
Mhm.
ass out. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. The problem I see that the reason we are in the mess we are in today is because corruption has taken over. I'm all for capitalism, but there still has to be societal safety checks so that this actual cabal of wealthy elite aren't actually
Yeah.
making all the decisions for the American people. This is
I do
supposed to be
think.
a democratic republic, right?
Yeah, I think kind of going back to our central message of how do we come together after this. I think a big part is it really is education and fighting back against years of misinformation and propaganda from
Yeah,
corporations. You know,
absolutely.
and that's how a lot of people are falling for the lies on social media. It's a lack of an education, it's a lack
Yeah,
of critical thinking, and it's
100%.
something, yeah.
Yeah,
um
I actually suggested, I was fortunate enough when Biden was the president, because of my veteran advocacy work, I was fortunate enough to take a meeting with one of his senior advisors. She asked to remain anonymous, but I mean, I was allowed to post about it and tell people I took this meeting with the executive office of the president of the United States, which was an honor.
Mhm.
Like I'm just a nobody. I just care about my country, you know.
Mhm.
Uh, but I was suggesting if she could please pass on the message to Biden at the time, and to Garland, that look, because I had friends in the Foreign Legion, still do, serving over in Ukraine,
Mhm.
American veterans,
Yeah.
um, volunteering with no benefit when they come home, but
Mhm.
sacrificing themselves, putting themselves on the line for Ukraine's freedom from an invading force, which it is.
Mhm.
Um, I was well aware because they were sending me footage, and I started to go viral on a lot of the footage on TikTok, um, that they were sending me, and I wasn't showing bodies or anything like that. You have to abide by guidelines, but you can show equipment and stuff like that blowing up all
Mhm.
day long. And anyway, so because I was showing that, man, I was getting a whole bunch of death threats from in Russian. I had emails with my apartment at the time, Google Maps, and in Russian, we found you.
Oh my
And the
gosh.
feds were, even under Biden, were still no help. They were like, well, I mean, yeah, we'll open a file for you, but there's nothing we can do until something happens. I'm like, all right, I'll call you when something happens, and you got to come pick up some brewskis off my floor,
Wow.
because I'm ready for it. But I was well aware, seeing not just in the influence campaigns on AI, which was still
Mhm.
rudimentary when Russia first invaded Ukraine, and has just blown up since then in its
Mhm.
development. But I was still seeing AI both in content creation as well as in comments. Comments was a huge part of Russian
Yep.
malicious influence campaigns, all posing as MAGA Americans, all
Mhm.
having an eagle or a flag or 1776 username and all this crap, and how easily it really started during COVID and the
Mhm.
anti-vax uh, influence campaign that was going on. I saw a ton of foreign influence
Mhm.
campaigns out there,
Yeah.
and I was speaking to this senior executive senior advisor to Biden at the within the executive office of the president of the United States, and I said, "Hey, please pass on this message because I'm seeing this in real time. I know we've got the First Amendment, and it's such a touchy thing, but you don't have to censor anything, but you can utilize what is being used against us, AI,
Yeah.
and have AI scrub the internet for what we're seeing repeated as far as messaging, and
Hmm.
track the originating source, and put up on a government website. Be aware of misinformation campaigns, and here's
Hmm.
where we first saw this originate from, just so that the general public has an area to go to and identify. Oh shit, we saw that come from Hungary. Oh, we saw that come from Russia. Oh,
Yeah.
these IP addresses are located in China or whatever.
So,
That way you don't have to even run into the fight or the argument of,
mhm.
oh, you're censoring, you're suppressing freedom of speech. It's like, no, we'll leave all that shit up there, but hey, by the way, here's a website where the American public can go to if they hear something that is invoking evoking an emotional response, and it triggers something and they're raising a red flag. Maybe they can go to this website and be like, "Oh yeah, look at that. That's the exact same thing that just pissed me off," and it
That
is
is
bullshit.
something that's hard though. I mean, so I don't know if you heard much about Singapore, but they were kind of a breeding ground or a testing ground for a lot of the Facebook
Yeah.
bot comment type of bot farm stuff when Duterte rose to power. And it is difficult, right? Because you want to say that everyone has a right to free speech, but um, some of these journalists were finding out they analyzed it and lies spread at the time that was 2017 six times faster than the truth on the internet. And
Right.
even when a erroneous article comes out and then later they issue a correction, that correction never gets as many views. And so it is like, how do we combat that on the internet, and
Well, I
it's
think we do need
tough.
one, the fairness doctrine reinstated as far as our news reporting.
Hmm.
But beyond that, like what you just said, where a retraction or a correction isn't viewed nearly as much as the original story.
Hmm.
All of these news organizations or publications or free press have the ability to take down the original story and
Hmm.
only put up the
Yeah.
corrected version. Um, they all have the ability. They don't want to because of
Hmm.
capitalism, because of ratings, because of viewership.
Yeah.
We definitely need. I think we need the fairness doctrine reinstated, but we also need it updated to
Hmm.
today's times, especially combating AI and misinformation. But hey, we're just about running out of time here. But
Hmm.
can you please explain who you are, what you're fighting for, your district, your website, and then I'll wrap us up.
Yeah. So my name is Dylan Blaha. You can check me out at dylanforillinois.com, but I'm running to get big money out of politics and fight for working families. So I'm running for Congress in Illinois' 13th district, and some of the biggest priorities that are applicable to our district are things like building affordable housing, universal health care, and repairing our aging infrastructure that hasn't been updated for decades and decades. But yeah, thanks for having me on, and I really appreciate it.
It's absolutely been my pleasure. I love what you're
Mhm.
doing. I love your message, especially that you're active duty National Guard for Illinois. All the very best to you and yours, your family, your brothers and sisters in uniform. Um, Veterans are and active duty are near and dear to my heart. And like I said, it's definitely one of my top priorities. My Character by Integrity Act to house homeless veterans across our nation,
Mhm.
because it's a problem that is just inexcusable and long past due. Everybody says support the troops, and unfortunately, our nation does far more talking about things than doing things.
No,
I aim
exactly.
to fix that. I am David Clayton, running in North Carolina's District 5. I am running as an independent. Um, I focus on people and policy over party, and I aim to get my name on a hit list, either by the RNC or the DNC, because I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. If you're on the take, I'm going to call you out.
Hmm.
Clayton, the number 4nc.com, because Dylan is a grassroots candidate, just as myself. I don't accept any foreign funded organizations' contributions. I do not accept any super PACs.
Hmm.
So we greatly, greatly appreciate your support and anything you can contribute. One of the things I'll end on, where I want to bring some fairness back to people that want to run for office to be able to be a representative of their community and their constituents is I want a law in the books that says uh, if you're worth XYZ, like $10 million plus, then you're responsible to fund your own damn campaign and stop asking people for money.
Yep.
If you've
Exactly.
got the money, if you got $200 million, you're Nancy Pelosi and you're running again, or you got $500 million and you're Rick Scott and you're running again, you can afford to fund your own damn campaign. Stop asking
Mhm.
the everyday American for money.
Yep. No, exactly. We gotta overturn Citizens United though. That is a
Absolutely.
priority.
Dylan, it was an absolute pleasure. You stay safe in all your endeavors, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sure we'll talk soon. Yeah.
Yeah,
Take care,
let's do
David.
this again real soon.
Yeah. Take care.
Take care. Thanks, everybody.